The murder of JonBenét Ramsey. Subscribe for more real crime stories. Like, share, and join the discussion below. The Ramsey house was quiet that morning, too quiet for Christmas Day. Snow fell softly outside, wrapping the Boulder neighborhood in a peaceful silence. Inside, gifts still sat unopened beneath the tall Christmas tree, and the faint scent of pine filled the air. But upstairs, panic had already taken hold. Patsy Ramsey stood trembling, clutching a handwritten ransom note she'd found on the staircase. The note claimed that JonBenét, her 6-year-old daughter, had been kidnapped. It demanded $118,000 for her safe return, an oddly specific number that matched John Ramsey's recent work bonus. Patsy screamed for her husband, her voice echoing through the large, beautiful home.
John!
It says they took her. They took JonBenét. Within minutes, the house was full of chaos. John Ramsey, pale and shaking, called 911. Police arrived quickly, their flashlights slicing through the dim morning light. But there was something strange about the scene. Nothing in the house looked forced open, and every window and door seemed perfectly locked. As officers moved through the house, neighbors and friends arrived to comfort the family. They brought coffee, blankets, prayers. The Ramsey home, once full of holiday warmth, now buzzed with whispers and worry. Officers tried to keep control, but the scene became crowded and messy. Evidence was touched, rooms were walked through, and the line between sympathy and investigation blurred. Hours passed. Still, no word came from the so-called kidnappers. No phone calls. No clues. The ransom note, written in shaky handwriting, was their only lead. Then, as the morning turned to afternoon, Detective Linda Arndt told John Ramsey and a family friend to search the house again, just in case. John moved toward the basement. The air grew colder as he descended the wooden steps, flashlight in hand. He pushed open a small white door that had been overlooked before. What he saw next made his heart stop. There, in a dark corner of the basement, lay the lifeless body of JonBenét Ramsey. She was wrapped in a white blanket. Duct tape covered her mouth. A cord was around her neck. Her favorite pink nightgown was folded neatly beside her. John screamed her name, lifting her into his arms and rushing upstairs, crying out for help. "Oh my God! They kill my baby!" he shouted. Officers rushed toward him, but it was already too late. The house that had once been filled with Christmas joy was now a crime scene. Police ordered everyone to stand back. But by then, it was too late to protect what mattered most, the evidence. The story that would soon shock America had just begun, and no one inside that house could have known how deep the mystery would go. Outside, snow continued to fall over Boulder, Colorado, soft and silent, as detectives whispered to one another. Something about this case didn't add up. Detectives sealed off the Ramsey home as more officers arrived. The front yard was filled with flashing lights that cut through the snow. Reporters had already begun to gather at the edge of the property, sensing something terrible had happened inside the large brick house on 15th Street. Inside, the mood shifted from confusion to suspicion. Detective Linda Arndt noticed small details that didn't sit right. The ransom note was unusually long, 2.5 pages, and seemed oddly personal. It mentioned John Ramsey's bonus, used formal phrases like foreign faction, and was written on paper taken from inside the Ramsey home itself. Whoever wrote it had been inside that house long enough to feel comfortable. When detectives asked John and Patsy to come to the station for statements, the couple appeared devastated but cooperative. Patsy was still wearing the same clothes she had slept in the night before, a velvet top and pants she had worn to a Christmas party. Her hands shook as she described waking up that morning, finding the note, and realizing her daughter was gone. John sat beside her quietly, his face pale, his voice low. But as the hours turned to days, the investigation started to unravel. Evidence had been mishandled from the very beginning. Friends and neighbors who had gathered in the house that morning had unknowingly stepped over key areas, leaving behind footprints and fingerprints. The body had been moved, contaminating the crime scene. The police couldn't even agree on what kind of crime they were dealing with. Was it a kidnapping gone wrong, or a murder staged to look like one? When the autopsy report came back, the results deepen the mystery. JonBenét had been strangled, but she had also suffered a head injury. The medical examiner said it looked like the head blow came first, followed by strangulation. It wasn't clear if she had been attacked by an intruder or someone inside the home. Then came another twist. There were no signs of forced entry, no footprints in the snow, and no fingerprints on the ransom note except those of Patsy Ramsey. Rumors spread quickly through Boulder and then across the nation. News anchors called it the perfect mystery. The little girl in the sparkling pageant dresses had become a household name overnight. Cameras flashed outside the Ramsey home. Talk shows debated theories. Was it a stranger who slipped in undetected, or someone much closer? Inside the police department, detectives divided into two camps. One group believed it had to be an outsider. The other thought the answer was hidden in plain sight. Then, late one evening, a forensic team made a shocking discovery. Tiny fibers found on the duct tape matched clothing from inside the Ramsey home. It was the first real clue that someone might be lying. The question that haunted everyone was simple, but terrifying. If there was no intruder, then who killed JonBenét? Weeks turned into months, and the Boulder Police Department was under enormous pressure. The entire country wanted answers. TV crews camped outside the Ramsey home, reporters shouted questions at the family, and magazines filled their covers with JonBenét's smiling face. Everyone wanted to know who had hurt a 6-year-old girl. Behind the scenes, detectives were stuck. Every lead seemed to point in two directions at once. The ransom note suggested a kidnapping, but the scene in the basement told a different story. DNA found under JonBenét's fingernails and on her clothing didn't match anyone in the family, but it also didn't match anyone in law enforcement databases. Meanwhile, John and Patsy Ramsey faced intense media attention. News outlets speculated endlessly. Some called them grieving parents. Others hinted they might be hiding something. Interview clips were played and replayed, every glance and gesture analyzed. The pressure was unbearable. To make things worse, the family began to clash with investigators. They hired lawyers and private investigators, claiming they were being unfairly targeted. The police, on the other hand, believed the Ramseys were withholding information. The case that had begun with tragedy was now divided by mistrust. In April 1997, the district attorney's office took control of the investigation. They reviewed every piece of evidence: the handwriting analysis, the ransom note, the fibers, the DNA samples. The handwriting experts said Patsy's writing shared similarities with the note, but not enough to prove she wrote it. It was another dead end. Then, a few years later, a new team used advanced DNA testing to re-examine the evidence. The results changed everything. The DNA on JonBenét's clothing didn't belong to anyone in the Ramsey family. That single piece of evidence finally cleared John, Patsy, and their son Burke from direct involvement. But that answer came too late. The public had already turned on them, and Patsy's health began to decline. She passed away in 2006, still fighting to clear her family's name. In 2008, Boulder authorities officially apologized to the Ramseys, stating there was not enough evidence to link them to the crime. But that didn't solve the mystery. The DNA pointed to an unknown male, someone who had never been found. Years later, there was a brief moment of renewed hope when a man named John Mark Carr confessed to JonBenét's murder. But his story quickly fell apart. His DNA didn't match, and he was ruled out. It was another twist in a case already full of them. Today, nearly 3 decades later, JonBenét Ramsey's case remains unsolved. The little girl once known for her big smile and pageant crown is now remembered as one of America's greatest mysteries. Cold case detectives still receive new tips, and technology continues to advance, raising hopes that one day the truth will finally come out. But for now, the Ramsey home stands quiet, its Christmas lights long gone, its windows dark. Behind those walls, a crime once shattered a family and captured a nation. And somewhere out there, the person responsible has never been brought to justice. The mystery of JonBenét Ramsey still whispers through the snowy streets of Boulder, a reminder that even the most perfect-looking lives can hide secrets no one ever sees.